Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Frederick Packard, with Star Wars After Hours. So, exciting news. Taika Waititi was just announced that he's going to be directing a live action Star Wars movie. So, this comes straight from Lucasfilm, straight from StarWars.com. So, it is official. The director of Thor, What We Do in the Shadows, is going to be directing a live action Star Wars film. Personally, I couldn't be more excited. If you're familiar with his work, I am a big fan. He also did a lot of work in The Mandalorian, acting and directing the final two episodes. So I think he is definitely primed and ready for this. What I'd like to do is actually read you guys the official statement from StarWars.com from Lucasfilm. So here we go. So Academy Award winner Taika Waititi to direct and co-write new Star Wars feature film for theatrical release. Oscar nominee Christy Wilson Cairns, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, to co-write screenplay with Waititi. Okay, Academy Award winner Taika Waititi, who recently won Best Adapted Screenplay for Jojo Rabbit and directed the wildly acclaimed first season finale episode of The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, will direct and co-write a new Star Wars feature film for theatrical release. Joining Waititi on the screenplay will be Academy Award nominee Christy Wilson Cairns. Um, she did 1970 Last Night in Soho, received a BAFTA Award for Outstanding British Film of the Year on the three-time Oscar-winning film 1917. In addition, Emmy nominated writer Leslie Headland, Russian Doll Bachelorette, is currently developing a new untitled Star Wars series for Disney Plus. Headland will write, executive produce, and serve as a showrunner for the series, which adds to a growing list of Star Wars stories for Disney's streaming platform, including The Mandalorian, now in post production on season 2, and two other previously announced series, one based on Cassian Andor's life prior to the events of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and another following the adventure of Obi-Wan Kenobi between Star Wars Revenge of the Sith and Star Wars A New Hope. Release dates for both Waititi's and Headland's projects have not yet been announced. Okay, so just to kind of touch base a little bit more in regards to these, these different creators that are going to be helming these series, I'm very interested to know what the untitled series is going to be. So rumors, speculations, right? So you have Obi-Wan, which is taking place between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and then you have Mandalorian, which is taking place after after the events of the final film from Return of the Jedi, before Force Awakens. Um, so where do you think this new series is gonna kind of play into? So if I had to take a bet, I think that they're going to be beefing up the Mandalorian series. I think it might come somewhere in that regard. I wouldn't be surprised, guys, if it was a Doctor Aphra series. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Doctor Aphra. They actually just um, released a comic book series, the first issue of Doctor Aphra, from due to Star Wars. May the Fourth be with you. So they did a free comic book for Doctor Aphra. Let me see if I can actually pull that up for you right now. So here we go. Actually, I found it for you. All right. So Doctor Aphra um, is a character that was introduced in the Vader series. And if you had an opportunity to collect those comics, this is actually one of the more valuable comic that you can have. I was very lucky to get my hands on it. But yeah, Doctor Aphra is a character that's created in the Vader series. I almost am willing to wager that this is going to be the person that we're going to see in a live action series. I think this is going to be, your Marvel Jessica Jones. Okay, I think this is going to be the character that they're going to weave into the Mandalorian. I think it would actually make a very interesting dynamic. I think the timeline adds up. So seeing her, Ahsoka, the Mandalorian, all on the main screen, excuse me, I think that might actually work. Now, with that being said, right, there's a lot to be desired, right? So there's in regards to what's coming with the Mandalorian, with having Ahsoka Tano, that's going to be premiering her live action debut in it. She'll probably be in her mid 40s in that series, so I guess it also does add up in regards to Rosario Dawson being casted as the actor. Then you also have The Mandalorian, and I do think this new series is going to be Doctor Aphra. I really do. You see, she actually has her own series. It did very well. So it's one of the first characters that is coming straight from comics that I think you're going to see in live action. On top of that, I just kind of wanted to dive into Taika Waititi a little bit more. So Taika is one of my favorite directors. Okay, so he did what we do in the shadows, which if you haven't had an opportunity to see what we do in the shadows, it is such a funny movie. He's also working on a Flash Gordon series, which is announced. He's doing Time Bandits, which was announced. We Are Wolves, which was announced. The Star Wars film, which is scheduled to or slated for 2024 at this point. And if you don't love Taika's, and hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right, if you don't love Taika's take on Thor, I mean, what that was the best Thor we've ever gotten, in my opinion. Say what you want about the Hulk in that movie, um, I still think it was a masterful movie. Not a lot of people were big fans of the way that they portrayed Bruce Banner in that movie, but I think they knocked it out of the park for Thor. Also excited to see Natalie Portman reprise her role and then be essentially, you know, she Thor, which is going to be pretty exciting. But I mean, the amount of movies that he's done, I think he's proven that he can handle a live action Star Wars film. Now, also just to essentially dive into this, right? What are your thoughts on his style of comedy, right? So, do you think that will fit in a Star Wars universe as a movie? And what type of movie are we going to see, right? So, he's pretty much relied heavily on that awkward comedy, that comedic take on a lot of things that he's done. So, I'm curious to see how they're going to use him in directing. Now, if we got a little bit of a taste in Mandalorian, but obviously there's a big difference between live action movies and television shows, right? So, yes, Mandalorian was great, but a show like that, compared to a Thor, I know Mandalorian. I think it was like somewhere around like $10 million an episode. Might have been a little bit more. You can correct me if I'm wrong. It was the most expensive television show ever created. I do know that. And then Game of Thrones, right? So the budget was astronomical. However, that still will never compare to a movie for Star Wars, where you pretty much have an unlimited budget, right? So what are they going to do? I mean, I think action and comedy. So, could we be getting it's untitled. Could we be getting a Solo too? Is that possible? I mean, maybe he would have been the right guy for the job the first time around, but probably not. Probably not getting a Solo too. Could we be getting something? I think they're moving away from the current timeline for Star Wars. I think we might be getting something in the Old Republic. So, in regards to what's coming in the future, is Ryan Johnson even still making a film for Star Wars? Does anybody have any information on that? I haven't heard a peep out of Ryan Johnson's camp besides just negativity towards him for The Last Jedi. And for you guys just getting to know me, I actually like The Last Jedi to a certain degree. But I am more of an original trilogy and a prequelist, and I think the sequel trilogy it was set up from the start for disaster. You'll eventually hear my takes on that, but not to say that there wasn't some good redeeming qualities from these movies. I think the actors were great. I liked Ray. I liked Poe Dameron. I think Luke gave some of his best you know scenes, even though they weren't exactly what I wanted personally. But I'm excited for what's going to come in the future. I don't want to keep dwelling on the past. Rise of Skywalker just came out on Disney Plus, but realistically speaking, I'm excited for a Taika movie. Taika Waititi is going to I think really brings something different and unique with his skill set. I mean, he I mean, if you watch What We Do in the Shadows, I mean, that is such a hilarious. It's about three vampires who are essentially dorming together in the United States, and it's just hilarious, right? And then that kind of comes over to the new Thor movie that he did. Well, it's not new anymore, but the Thor movie, and that type of comedic take. I think, I mean, Thor it worked perfectly. Now, will it work perfect in Star Wars? That's my concerns, but I really hope it does. I know he can do action. I know he could do comedy, but everybody knows Star Wars comedy is different, right? Star Wars comedy is that banter back and forth between, Leia and Han. It's the sarcastic tones to Star Wars that makes it feel like real sarcasm, but in a comedic way, where it's relatable to the character's personality. Where Marvel humor is the humor is done for the gag, so it's like gag humor, right? So it's essentially the humor that they do is done purposefully, but it's very similar across the board, in my opinion, when these characters all do something humorous. It's not really driven to their personality. Um, at least that's my opinion. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, you tell me I'm an idiot. But to me, I think there's a very big difference between Star Wars humor and Marvel humor, and I hope that Taika Waititi's style of humor, obviously, you want the man to create, whatever it is that he wants to create. However, it is still a Star Wars story, so you hope he does it justice. But if I was to wager on timeline that we're going to be, venturing to, I think we're going back in time. I think with all the books, the comics that are coming out they're airing in the Old Republic, um, I do believe we're going back in time. Okay, and I think we're going to see some new heroes, some new people, um, that we can follow and get excited about. So let me know what you guys think. Drop a comment if you think that Taika's story is going to be Old Republic, take place after the first trilogy, the original trilogy, after the prequel trilogy, or maybe before. Where do you think this is going to fall in the timeline? Essentially, is what I'm curious to know. Do you think he's the right man for the job? I do personally. I think he's going to do a great job. I do have some reservations. Like I said, the only my only reservation is I know he can direct and I know that he can act. He'll probably make a cameo in his film. The over under on that is probably 70%. Like 70%, I'm saying he's definitely gonna make a cameo in his own film. Probably as a comedic character, and it'll probably be a CG character. So that's why I think we're going to have a very adventurous film, and I'm excited to see what it is. But what is your guys' take? Do you think that he's going to deliver? Do you think he's the right man for the job? And I'm curious to know what you think. Also, soon, guys, we're going to start doing some more Clone War reviews. So hopefully, you could take a look at that as they start coming through. But we're really excited. So I have my friend Josh and I are going to go through. He's never watched Clone Wars. I've had him watch a handful of episodes just so I can get his take on some things. We have very different opinions on a lot of things. So I'm hoping that brings a nice little dynamic to the show, because he's very much an original trilogy guy, and then he kind of views the sequel trilogy and the prequel trilogy very close on the scale, but not the biggest fan of both, but still a diehard Star Wars fan. But he's never watched Clone Wars or Rebels, so I want to go through now that Clone Wars is all done, and we're gonna leave a review after every episode. So if you guys are interested in that, please stay tuned. Now another thing is if you guys could please subscribe. That would be greatly helpful. We'd appreciate that. We're trying to grow the channel so that we can get more Star Wars fans, more people engaged in the content, where we could just keep talking Star Wars and doing what we love. But that's pretty much it. Taika Waititi coming to Star Wars. We have The Mandalorian, which is going to be airing soon for season two, which is, I believe, finished, completely filming, and they're in post production at this point. So I'm excited. I'm also excited for all the books and comics that are coming out. If you haven't read Dr. Aphra yet, please read Dr. Aphra, because I really do believe she's getting her own series. If it is a Disney Plus series and they're looking to establish a new character in a series and not give us somebody that's already been created, unless they go back and do a solo series, which might be very interesting because I think a lot of people are wanting solo too, but maybe they just give it to us as a series. Because because I know they signed up for 3 movies when they initially did their contracts. But all right, guys, that's it for today's Star Wars After Hours. I'm gonna try to upload videos. I haven't really figured out a schedule just yet. So work with me as I'm going through this. So I ideally wanted to do it as a weekly show, but I'm finding I like talking Star Wars way too much, and there's news dropping all the time right now. And honestly, got a lot of time on my hands due to being stuck inside all day because of the pandemic that's going on. And hopefully everybody's staying safe. But looking forward to talking more Star Wars. And as always, guys, may the Force be with you.